back, everyone! I know it's been a little bit while since I've done a true crime video, but I did post two separate polls, and it looks like y'all either wanted to see more art videos from me, which I will continue making because I post that on my TikTok, and then after I post on TikTok, it goes onto my YouTube Shorts. But then the other highest poll was true crime cases. So, with that, I posted a second poll on what case that you guys wanted me to cover. And so we have The Love Has Won. We had The Son of Sam. We had another true crime case that was really sad, but unfortunately I forgot her name at this given point. And then I posted an other, which you guys could comment down below what cases you wanted me to cover or talk about. But an outstanding number. Literally, it was everyone only wanted to hear about Love Has Won. Which surprised me, but hey, guys want to hear about Love Has Won? Go. Here I am, and I'm talking about it today. So, with that, I do have to say that this video does discuss cults, the Love Has Won cult, psychological manipulation, substance abuse, death, and disturbing events that some viewers may find upsetting. So if any of you are sensitive to any of that, please click away. But we are talking about a real cult case that has happened and is still actually going on today. The numbers have really decreased, but they're still around. But this video is intended for educational and documentary purposes only, so the beliefs discussed belong to the individuals involved and are not presented as fact. Some events are based on public records, interviews, documentaries, and reporting available at the time of this video. So, please bear with me. If y'all know anything more about this case, please comment down below. I want to hear your guys' knowledge and what you guys know. And then, with that as well, if you have any other true crime cases you want me to cover, please post them down below because I want to make what my viewers want to see. So, with that, let's get started. This is the cult of Love Has Won. Alright. So imagine being told that the woman, the person, the whoever who's sitting in front of you isn't just enlightened. She isn't just a spiritual leader or teacher. She isn't even simply a prophet. Instead, you are told she is legitimately a god. Not metaphorically, not symbolically, but in all reality, that she is a physical embodiment of a god. She claims to have lived over 500 previous lives, saying she had once been Jesus Christ, Joan of Arc, Cleopatra, Marilyn Monroe, and many others throughout history. Her followers believed every single word that she said. They quit their jobs. They left behind their families, donated literally everything that they owned, all money, possessions, everything. Donated everything to the cult and her. And dedicated every waking moment to serving the woman they call Mother God. But behind the live streams filled with promise of love, ascension, and enlightenment, former members describe a very, very different reality. A reality filled with emotional manipulation, public humiliation, alcohol abuse, sleep deprivation, and complete obedience to one person. Then in April of 2021, authorities in Colorado entered a house after receiving a disturbing report. Inside, they discover a scene unlike anything most officers had ever encountered in their careers. The body of the group's leader. Covered in glitter, decorated with Christmas lights, wrapped inside a sleeping bag. Her skin had turned a metallic blue. Some followers believed she wasn't even dead. They believed she was transforming into a higher dimensional being, and that humanity simply wasn't advanced enough to understand what was happening. How does a movement centered on love end with a mummified body in a bedroom? This is the story of the cult known as Love Has Won. So, before we begin, it's important to understand one thing. Groups like Love Has Won rarely begin by looking dangerous. Most people don't wake up one morning intending to join a cult. I mean, it's like waking up, get your cup of coffee, and you sit down and you're like, hey, you know what sounds good today? You know, join in a cult. Well, instead, they are searching for meaning, healing, community, answers, purpose. A lot of people who feel lost in life and just want a place to belong. Love Has Won offered all those things. At least, that's what they promised. Over time, however, many former followers say those promises became tools of control. The organization attracted thousands of viewers online through YouTube, Facebook, live streams, and social media as a whole. While only a relatively small number lived full time with the group, many more supported it financially or spiritually from around the world. At the center of it all was one specific woman, and her name was Amy Carlson. Now, who was Amy Carlson? Long before she became known as Mother God, Amy Carlson lived what appeared to be a fairly ordinary life. She was born on November 30th, 1975, in Kansas. Friends and relatives generally described her as outgoing, caring, and personable. As she grew older, Amy held a variety of jobs, including management positions at restaurants. She married and became a mother of 3 children. By many accounts, she loved her children deeply. But as the years passed, something began to change. Yeah, a little odd over the years. Amy developed an increasing interest in spirituality and alternative belief systems. I mean, nothing wrong with that, but spoil into the future. If you become a cult leader, that's usually not a good thing. Well, anyways, she became fascinated by New Age ideas involving energy, reincarnation, a higher consciousness, and humanity's spiritual evolution. These beliefs were not uncommon on their own. You know, there's been multiple different cults and multiple different beliefs, aka one cult that really sticks out in my mind with these is the Heaven's Gate cult. Crazy cult. But many people explore similar philosophies without ever becoming involved in harmful groups. I mean, it's fine to ponder and like look into stuff and try different spiritualities to see what actually resonates with you. But for Amy, the journey became increasingly extreme. According to multiple accounts from former friends and family members, she gradually became convinced that she had a unique spiritual purpose. Eventually, she made a decision that would alter countless lives. Amy left her family, including her children, to pursue what she believed was her divine mission. Her relatives have spoken publicly about the heartbreak this caused. I mean, imagine you're her children, and as they grow up, they find out that their mother left them to become a cult leader. I feel so bad for those children. Like, come on. Like, who would leave their beautiful little children in order to become a crazy cult leader? Well, I guess a crazy cult leader would, but I feel terrible for them children and her family. But the children don't deserve that. But for them, Amy wasn't simply chasing a dream. She was disappearing into an entirely different reality. Because, you know, she's a crazy cult leader. That's kind of what they do. They're kind of crazy. But throughout the late 2000s, Amy spent time exploring various spiritual communities. The internet had become a place where people could easily connect over unconventional beliefs. Online forums, live streams, Facebook groups alternative healing communities, these spaces allowed ideas to spread rapidly. Amy immersed herself in many of them. She became influenced by concepts involving ascension, star seeds, fifth dimensional consciousness, channeling divine beings, energy healing, and galactic civilizations. Eventually, Amy claimed she experienced profound spiritual revelations. She no longer believed she was simply a seeker, she believed she had discovered her true identity. She announced something extraordinary. She wasn't merely connected to God. No. She was God. Specifically, she called herself Mother God. So, now we're going to talk about the beginning of the cult. So, around 2014, Amy began gathering followers online. She presented herself as humanity's spiritual mother. She claimed she had spent billions of years guiding Earth towards enlightenment. According to Amy, every major religion had misunderstood history. Instead, she claimed she had personally lived hundreds of lifetimes helping humanity evolve. Her followers accepted incredible claims, among them that Mother God had previously been Jesus, Joan of Arc, Cleopatra, Marilyn Monroe, Pocahontas, Queen Elizabeth, and many other famous historical figures. The list changed over time, but one idea remained constant. Mother God had supposedly returned once again to save humanity. Now, unlike many older cults that relied on physical compounds or street recruiting, Love Has Won thrived online. Almost anyone could stumble across one of their broadcasts. The group streamed for hours every day. At first glance, many videos appeared peaceful, soft music played, people smiled, happy. They spoke about unconditional love, healing, meditation, forgiveness, community. It all looked comforting and warm, like you just crawled into your bed after a very bad day, and like you rolled up in a nice, warm, comfortable blanket. All happy, goody feelings. But, and especially to people struggling with loneliness or emotional pain, that really resonated with them because, they want someplace to belong, feel loved, and just be a part of the community and, feel like they belong. But, however, former followers later described a gradual process. First, you watched. Then, you chatted. Eventually, someone from the group might message you personally. They made people feel important, seen, understood, accepted. But for many, the sense of belonging was incredibly powerful, especially during difficult moments in life. Over time, some viewers donated money, others bought spiritual products. Eventually, a few left everything behind to move in with Mother God herself. Now, Love Has Won wasn't simply a spiritual group. It became a straight-up business. The organization sold products including, but not limited to, spiritual consultations, energy healing sessions, crystals, essential oils, dietary supplements, books, merchandise. You gotta get that little merch drop in there. And even sessions where followers believed Mother God could personally heal them from a distance. Live streams frequently encouraged donations. Followers often believed supporting Mother God financially would also help humanity itself. Former members later alleged that many people donated far beyond what they could comfortably afford because they sincerely believed the world depended on Mother God's mission. Meanwhile, Amy's influence continued growing. She wasn't simply becoming a spiritual leader, she was becoming the unquestioned center of an entire belief system. And questioning Mother God was becoming increasingly unacceptable. No, 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 you can't question your cult leader, man. That's a no. But as Love Has Won gained followers online, Amy Carlson's influence continued to grow. Her supporters no longer saw her as simply a gifted spiritual leader. They believed she was a literal creator of the universe living in a human body. But if Mother God was the center of creation, then everyone around her had a role to play in what they believed was a divine mission. One of the most important and most unstoppable roles was that of Father God. Not only is there a Mother God, but now joining the role is Father God. So, unlike Mother God, whose identity never changed, the title of Father God passed from one man to another over the years. Amy claimed these men were divinely chosen to stand beside her and help lead humanity into a new age. But in reality, the relationships were often short-lived and filled with conflict. Former members have said that several men were given the title at different times. Some left voluntarily, others were removed after disagreements with Amy or the group's inner circle. What did I tell you? You don't pick fights with your cult leader, man. But, anyways, each new Father God was introduced to followers as if he had always been destined for the role. When one relationship ended, another man would soon take his place. To outsiders, this revolving door of leadership raised questions, as it should. But inside the group, followers were taught that Mother God's divine plan was constantly evolving, and they accepted these changes without question. Like I keep saying, you can't question your cult. So, one of the most well-known Father Gods was Jason Castillo, or Castillo. Sorry if I mispronounce any name in this. I am very bad at names. But, anyways, a former truck driver, Castillo eventually became Amy's closest companion and one of the group's most recognizable faces. Unlike some earlier Father Gods, Jason embraced the role completely. He was really well immersed in that role. He often appeared beside Amy during live streams, helping reinforce her authority. Former followers have alleged that Castillo's leadership style was aggressive and intimidating. He was basically the guard dog of Amy. Like, you don't mess with Amy, otherwise you get the Castillos. But during live streams, he frequently argued with critics, mocked people who questioned the group's beliefs, and defended Amy against any perceived attack. Supporters, however, viewed him differently. To them, he was protecting Mother God from negativity and misunderstanding. This divided between how insiders and outsiders viewed the group became increasingly dramatic. As Amy's authority grew, questioning her became almost impossible. Former members described an environment where Mother God's opinions were treated as absolute truth. If Amy approved of something, it was good. If she disapproved, it was bad. Followers were encouraged to bring nearly every major decision to her. Should they move? Ask Mother God. Should they leave a relationship? Ask Mother God. Should they reconnect with family? Ask Mother God. Even personal health decisions were sometimes influenced by Amy's guidance. Over time, many followers stopped trusting their own judgment. Instead, they learned to rely entirely on Mother God's approval. Experts who study high control groups often describe this process as gradually replacing an individual's independent decision making with complete dependence on the leader. Former members say that this dependence developed slowly, making it difficult to recognize while they were inside the group. So, gradually making so that people will start depending on this cult leader so that her authority is absolute. It's very common in other cult cases. Very, very common. Unlike many cults of the past, Love Has Won didn't rely on television appearances or public rallies. The internet became its most powerful recruiting tool. New Age cult, New Age ways. But the group live streamed for hours nearly every day. Viewers from around the world tuned in. Some broadcasts featured meditation, discussions about spirituality, or music. Others stretched on for hours with Amy answering questions from followers. The live streams also served another purpose, though. They allowed viewers to feel as though they personally knew Mother God. Regular viewers began forming emotional connections with her. Many chatted daily. Some eventually donated money, others volunteered their time, and a handful packed up their lives and traveled across the country to join the group in person. While public broadcasts often focus on love, healing, and enlightenment, former members have described a much harsher private environment, which is usually the case, but here we are. Several former followers have alleged that they were frequently yelled at, insulted, or publicly humiliated if they made mistakes. Criticism wasn't seen as abuse, though. Instead, members were told Mother God was removing their ego. The only one with ego can be Mother God. You know that, right? Well, if someone cried after being berated, they were often told their emotional reaction proved they still had spiritual work to do. Because you can't show any human emotions. They don't want you to be human. No. No individuality. No. You are part of the cog of the cult. This created a difficult situation. If followers felt hurt, the group taught them the problem wasn't the treatment. The problem was themselves. Over time, this belief made many members less likely to question what was happening. Another common theme described by former members was increasing isolation. Family members who expressed concern were often labeled as low vibration or unable to understand Mother's mission. Friends who questioned the group could be dismissed as negative influences. Members were encouraged to spend more and more time with the community and less time with people outside it. Another common occult thing. They want to isolate you so they can manipulate you. But not everyone became completely isolated. Some maintained contact with loved ones. But numerous former followers have said that distancing from skeptical family members became increasingly common. Isolation can make it much harder for people to evaluate their situation objectively. Without outside perspectives, the group's beliefs became the primary reality. Love Has Won frequently asked supporters for financial financial support. Can't speak today, well. But rather than calling them payments, donations were often described as energy exchanges. The group sold products and services that they claimed could help people spiritually, including spiritual readings, energy healing sessions, crystals, essential oils, vitamins, online classes, everything I stated before. But supporters who believed Mother God possessed divine healing abilities sometimes spent significant amounts of money on these offerings. Former members have alleged that financial pressure increased over time, with followers encouraged to contribute as much as possible to support the mission. They wanted money, give them all their money. But the group maintained that these contributions helped spread love and raise the consciousness of humanity. You're helping humanity by giving me, Mother God, all your money. That's basically what Mother God was saying, basically. By this point, Love Has Won existed in two very different worlds. To followers, Mother God was saving humanity. She was misunderstood, persecuted, mocked for telling the truth. But to critics, Amy Carlson appeared to be leading an increasingly dangerous high-control group built around extraordinary claims that unquestioning obedience. These competing narratives would soon collide because behind the scenes, Amy's physical health was beginning to deteriorate. Rather than seeking conventional medical treatment, she increasingly relied on alternative practices and spiritual explanations for her symptoms. Her followers believed every illness she experienced was proof that she was absorbing humanity's pain. That belief would have devastating consequences. Because, as Mother God, she is just a sponge that soaks up all of humanity's negative emotions, and that's reflecting on her physical flesh. Yeah, that's what the cult believes. Yeah, crazy, crazy, crazy. She literally had an illness, and her followers just basically refused to give her medical care because they thought that she was absorbing all the negative energy from humanity. So she was suffering, let's just say that. But by 2019, Love Has Won had become far more than an online spiritual community. Amy Carlson's followers believed that they were living through the most important moment in human history. Got that brainwashing. But to them, Mother God wasn't getting older. She wasn't getting sick. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. She was. But she was carrying the weight of humanity itself. As Amy's health visibly declined, her followers didn't see warning signs. They saw prophecy unfolding. As months passed, viewers began noticing changes in Amy's appearance during live streams. She appeared thinner. Her speech was sometimes slurred. She often looked exhausted. There were times when she struggled to stay focused during long broadcasts. To outside observers, it appeared that Amy needed serious medical attention. Spoiler alert, she did! But inside Love Has Won, there was a very different explanation. Followers believed Mother God was absorbing humanity's negative energy like a sponge. But according to the group's teachings, every illness, every ache, and every moment of suffering she experienced was because she was cleansing the world. Rather than seeing these symptoms as signs of disease, many followers viewed them as proof of her divine sacrifice. One of the most troubling aspects of Amy's final years was her heavy alcohol consumption. Former members and publicly available live streams show Amy frequently drinking. Often throughout the day, when questioned about it, the group did not describe it as an addiction. Instead, some followers claimed alcohol helped Mother God manage the immense energetic burden she carried. Wow, I cannot speak today, but to continue, this spiritual framing, made it easier for followers to accept behavior that might otherwise have caused concern. Former members have since said they struggled to reconcile with what they were seeing with what they believed. Some began questioning the group's teachings. Others convinced themselves that ordinary rules simply didn't apply to Mother God. Brainwashing! Ew. That's what cults do best. As Amy's health continued to worsen, another controversial practice became increasingly prominent. Colloidal silver. I am probably not saying that correctly, but colloidal silver. I'm going with that. Y'all can correct me in the comments. Colloidal silver is a liquid containing tiny particles of silver. It has been marketed by some as an alternative remedy for a wide variety of illnesses. However, health authorities have long warned that colloidal silver has not been proven to treat diseases, and long-term use can cause serious side effects, including a condition called argyria. Argyria. Again, I cannot pronounce this. I'm sorry. But, which can permanently turn the skin a bluish-gray color. Delicious. Going full Smurf style, I guess. But Amy supportedly consumed large amounts of colloidal silver during her final months. As her skin began taking on a blue-gray appearance, followers did not see it as a medical complication. Some described it as evidence that Mother God was transforming into higher state of being, like kind of like that Sailor Moon transformation, going from normal girl into Mother God, I guess. But former members have since recalled feeling uneasy, but also afraid to challenge the group's beliefs. Whenever Amy's condition worsened, followers often searched for spiritual explanations. Some believed dark spiritual forces were attacking her. Others claimed secret organizations, sometimes referred to by the group as the Cable, were attempting to stop humanity's ascension. In this worldview, doctors, governments, and mainstream media were not simply mistaken. They were often portrayed as part of a larger system working against enlightenment. This belief made outside intervention even more difficult. If someone suggested Amy needed medical care, that suggestion could be interpreted as helping the very forces the group believed were trying to destroy Mother God. Outside the group, concern continued, and rightfully so, to grow. Relatives of several members spoke publicly about their fears. Some said that their loved ones had become almost unrecognizable after joining Love Has Won. They described dramatic personality changes, increasing isolation, and unwavering loyalty to Amy. Families attempted to reconnect with members, but many found communication becoming increasingly strained. Former followers have said they were encouraged to see concerned relatives as obstacles to their spiritual mission. This dynamic is one experts frequently identify in high control groups. When loved ones become framed as enemies rather than sources of support. A lot of cults this happened with, like a lot. And if you guys want to comment down below which other cults you want me to cover, I'd go for it. But back to Love Has Won. Despite the group's public confidence, not everyone remained convinced. Some long-term followers quietly left. They skedaddled. They were like, peace out. This is a little bit too much for us now. Others began sharing their experiences publicly. Former members described emotional manipulation, unpredictable leadership, and an atmosphere where questioning Mother God was discouraged. Some said they had ignored obvious warning signs because they desperately wanted the group's promises to be true, which in reality is a lot of the reason why people join cults. It is very sad, and if anybody out there is feeling like lost, lonely, or they want desperately a place to belong, please go get help somewhere where you're not joining a crazy cult. Please focus on yourself and your health and your mental stability. It's usually, for the most part, never a good thing to join a cult. But leaving the cult, however, was not always easy, which usually they are not. Many had invested years of their lives, some had donated large sums of money, others had cut ties with their family and friends, meaning that they had little to no money, no family or friends to go home to and have and receive help if they cut them off. And they have lost years of their lives to this cult. Walking away often meant admitting that everything they had believed might have been built on false assumptions, which can be very devastating to people and very, very draining and hard on someone's mental health, and could result in them feeling guilty and even cause depression and very harmful thoughts to some people, which is very, very sad. And I hope nobody who watches this would ever go through those feelings or thoughts. But sadly, those who decide to go through and join a cult and then later leave very highly experience this. But by early 2021, Amy Carlson's health had deteriorated dramatically. She appeared extremely frail in videos, her weight had dropped significantly, her skin had become noticeably blue-gray. She had difficulty moving without assistance. To many outside observers, the situation appeared critical. But inside the group, followers continued insisting that Mother God was completing her final mission. Some believed she was preparing to ascend into higher dimension. Others believed her physical body was simply no longer capable of containing her immense spiritual energy. The possibility that she might simply be dying was one many followers struggled to accept. In April 2021, Amy left California with several followers and traveled back to Colorado. By this point, according to later reports, she was gravely ill. Instead of seeking emergency medical treatment, the group remained focused on spiritual explanations because, this cult, all of the government stuff, all medical care is part of a bigger organization against her specifically. But exactly what happened during Amy's final hours has been pieced together through interviews, law enforcement reports, and statements from former members. What is clear is that sometime in late April 2021, Amy Carlson died at the age of 45, which is very young. 45? That's not even half your life. Half your life is 50. I still consider that young, man. That's half my age. But for many followers, that was not the end. In their minds, Mother God had not truly died. She had begun her ascension. And what they chose to do next would shock investigators, the public, and even experienced law enforcement officers. I mean, hell, me, a simple little pleb. I'm like, what the hell? Researching this, crazy. Watching the documentary, crazy. But for years, Amy Carlson had promised her followers that she was guiding humanity towards a higher level of consciousness. Even as her health rapidly declined, many believed she could not truly die. She was unkillable. She was immortal. At least her soul was. They believed she would ascend, transform, return in a new form. But in late April 2021, reality finally caught up with belief. Amy Carlson was officially dead. The decision her followers made in hours and days that followed would become one of the most disturbing chapters in modern American cult history. Which it definitely is. The exact circumstances surrounding Amy Carlson's death remain unclear in some reports, but investigators believe she died around April 28, 2021. After months of severe physical decline. Because, her skin was blue, she was exhausted, she was an alcoholic, all of that combined, it ain't gonna be a pretty picture. But, like I said before, she died at the ripe age of 45 years old. Medical experts and public reports later pointed to multiple factors that likely contributed to her death, including her chronic alcohol use, malnutrition, and the prolonged consumption of colloidal silver. Because, injecting silver probably isn't, very healthy. But, along with the absence of conventional medical treatment. For most people, the next step would have been straightforward, call 911. There's a dead body of our leader. Come pick her up, please. But, also, notify her family. She has kids. And all that. She had a family back home. And, arrange for medical examination, to actually determine what actually caused her to lose her life. But, that's not what happened. Of course not. But, no, that didn't happen. According to investigators and later interviews, several members of Love Has Won believed Amy had not truly died. Instead, they believed she had ascended to a higher plane of existence. Within the group's belief system, death wasn't seen as an ending. It was viewed as a spiritual transition. Rather than reporting her death, followers began treating her body as though it was still spiritually significant. Some believed her physical remains contained powerful energy. Others believed she was continuing to guide them from another dimension. These beliefs shaped every decision that followed. After Amy's death, a group of followers transported her body from California to a residence near Crestone, Colorado. The journey itself raised numerous questions for investigators. Instead of contacting authorities, members traveled hundreds of miles with Amy's remains. By the time they arrived, decomposition had already begun. Inside the house, followers carefully arranged her body. Investigators later reported that Amy had been placed inside a sleeping bag. Her body was wrapped in blankets. Christmas lights had been draped around her. Glitter had been applied to parts of her body and face. This scene was unlike anything many responding officers had encountered. I think that would be crazy for anybody, even a seasoned law enforcement or FBI agent or anybody seeing a body in that state. And to investigators, it appeared deeply, deeply disturbing, which is true. To the followers present, however, these actions were acts of love and reverence. They love Mother God, and they want to prove their love by decorating up her body, because that's apparently what she would want. One detail made the situation even more alarming. When deputies entered the residence, they found not only several adult followers, but also 2 children, including a young child who had been living in the home. Authorities later stated that the children were removed from the residence for their safety. Thank God! Because those children, I don't even want to know what they were going through. Because they were literally in the same place with this dead woman's body. And they might have faced the whole different other traumatic experiences. And I feel horrible for those children. I am so happy they got out and were put into a safe holding area, a safe place. But while there was no indication the children had participated in the adults' decisions regarding Amy's body, because, they're children, investigators were deeply concerned about their environment they had been exposed to, because, they're children in a cult. It is usually not good for children to be in a cult. But the presence of children added another heartbreaking layer of an already very tragic case. On April 28th, 2021, authorities received information that led deputies to the residence. When law enforcement entered the home, they discovered the scene exactly as it had been described. Amy's body was lying in a bedroom. Her skin had turned blue-gray, everything that I mentioned before all that. The Christmas lights and all the glitter. Then officers later described the scene as surreal, which, I would too. It quickly became national news. Photographs from inside the residence were never broadly released to the public, but official descriptions alone shocked people across the country. 7 adult members of Love Has Won were arrested at the home. Initially, they faced charges related to abuse of a corpse and child abuse, stemming from the treatment of Amy's body and presence of children in the residence. Among those arrested was Jason Castillo, hey, Father God, he comes back. The arrest generated widespread media attention. Many people who had never heard of Love Has Won suddenly found themselves asking the same questions. How could something like this happen? Like, what? This makes no sense. Like, what? How? What? Huh? Everything that I was questioning when I was researching this. Like, what? But, as news spread, headlines focused on the bizarre discovery. Photos of Amy from earlier live streams circulated alongside descriptions of the scene inside the house. To many people, the story seemed unbelievable. How could intelligent adults become convinced that a deceased woman wrapped in Christmas lights was somehow preparing to save humanity? When you put it like that, I mean, like, come on. It's kind of ridiculous, not gonna lie. But, they got brainwashed, they've been in there for years. But experts on coercive groups pointed out that this wasn't simply about unusual religious beliefs, it was about the gradual process of psychological influence. Members hadn't accepted every extraordinary claim overnight. They had spent months or even years immersed in a belief system where questioning Mother God became increasingly difficult. By the time Amy died, many followers had come to interpret reality almost entirely through the lens of the group's teachings. Like I said before, brainwashing! But an autopsy was later conducted by the El Paso County coroner. The coroner concluded that Amy Carlson died from a combination of global decline associated with chronic alcohol abuse, anorexia, and chronic colloidal silver ingestion. Like I said, ingesting silver probably is not a good idea. But her death was ruled to have occurred from natural causes. Importantly, the autopsy did not conclude that she had been murdered. However, the findings highlighted the severe physical condition she had been in before her death. Medical experts have noted that prolonged alcohol abuse, malnutrition, and reliance on unproven remedies instead of evidence-based medical care can have devastating consequences. Who would have thought? Just doing this. Yeah, no, that's better than actual medical help. In the weeks following the arrests, prosecutors reviewed the available evidence. Some of the original criminal charges were later dismissed or resolved for legal reasons, while the investigation continued to examine the circumstances surrounding Amy's death and the group's actions. Although the legal outcome varied, the public scrutiny did not fade, as it should not, but former followers began speaking more openly. Family members shared stories of loved ones they believed had been manipulated. Journalists dug deeper into years of live streams and online posts. What emerged was a portrait of a movement that had promised unconditional love, but, according to many former members, often delivered control, fear, and, of course, isolation. With that, Amy Carlson was gone. But Love Has Won did not disappear overnight. Some followers accepted that Mother God had died. Others continued believing she was communicating with them from another dimension. The group's community fractured. Former members struggled to rebuild their lives, families attempted to reconnect with loved ones, and the world was left asking an uncomfortable question. Could something like this happen again? For many cults, the death of the leader marks the end of the movement. For Love Has Won, it wasn't that simple. Amy Carlson was gone. But the beliefs she had spent years building did not disappear overnight because a lot of people were brainwashed and spent years in the cult. That doesn't just disappear. But some followers accepted her death, others insisted she had completed her mission and continued guiding from the other dimension, like I said before. The organization fractured, but its influence still lingered. In the weeks after Amy Carlson's death, Love Has Won splintered into smaller groups. Without Mother God physically present, disagreements quickly emerged over who should lead and how her teaching should continue. Some former members left entirely, saying Amy's death forced them to confront realities they had spent years ignoring. Others remained committed to her message. Some believed she was still communicating spiritually through meditation, dreams, or channelings. To them, Amy's death wasn't a failure of the movement. It was proof that she had ascended beyond the physical world. This divide highlighted one of the most powerful aspects of high control groups. Even when the leader is gone, the belief system can still remain. Leaving a high control group is rarely as simple as walking away. Former members have described feeling lost, ashamed, and isolated after leaving Love Has Won, which is very common in any cult. But many had spent years believing they were part of a divine mission. Some had cut ties with parents, siblings, their own children, and lifelong friends. Others had donated significant amounts of money or given up careers and homes. When these beliefs collapsed, they were forced to rebuild nearly every part of their lives from scratch. Several former members have spoken publicly about experiencing guilt, anxiety, depression, and difficulty trusting others, which, like I said previously, is very, very common. And I hope every single person that ever leaves a cult receives help and knows and feels that there will be another person, not a cult, but other people in their lives that will and should help them. And I hope that they just get better and all the happiness to them. But mental health professionals who work with former cult members say this is common, which, like I keep saying, it very much is. Recovery often involves learning to make independent decisions again, reconnecting with loved ones, and processing the emotional impact of manipulation. For many, healing takes years, and sometimes the rest of their lives, which is the unfortunate part. But in the long run, they do receive help, which is what that all that matters is that they receive help and their lives get better. While former followers worked to rebuild their lives, families who had watched loved ones disappear into the movement faced their own emotional journey. Parents described feeling helpless. Siblings spoke about watching someone they loved slowly become consumed by beliefs they couldn't recognize. Some relatives had spent years trying to convince members to leave. Others stopped hearing from them altogether. In interviews following Amy's death, several families expressed a mixture of grief and relief. Grief for the years that had been lost, relief that the group's influence had finally begun to weaken. Some families were able to reconnect, others never had that opportunity, unfortunately. In 2023, the documentary series Love Has Won, The Cult of Mother God introduced millions of viewers to the group's story. This is the documentary that I watched. It is good, but it's very highly disturbing. But if you are a fan of true crime and can stomach this type of stuff, I highly recommend that documentary. It's tempting to look at Love Has Won and assume its followers were simply gullible or irrational. Experts caution against that assumption. Many people who become involved in high control groups are intelligent, compassionate, and genuinely searching for a purpose, healing, or belonging. They're just people. They're like you and me. Cults rarely introduce their most extreme beliefs immediately. Instead, commitment often develops gradually. Each small step makes the next one seem more reasonable. Over time, questioning the group becomes increasingly difficult. By the time serious warning signs appear, Members may already feel emotionally, financially, and socially invested and cannot escape. This pattern has been observed in many different groups throughout history and multiple different cults. Multiple. Now, for anyone who is wondering, the warning signs of a high control group. While every group is different, researchers have identified several warning signs that may indicate a harmful or coercive organization. These include, but are not limited to, a leader who claims to possess absolute truth or special divine authority, discouraging members from questioning leadership, isolating followers from family and friends, demanding increasing financial or personal sacrifices, framing outsiders as enemies or spiritually inferior, encouraging members to rely exclusively on the group's teachings instead of independent sources of information, creating fear that leaving the group will result in spiritual, emotional, or physical harm. Not every unusual spiritual community is a cult, but when these patterns appear together, experts say it's important to approach this situation with caution. Because a lot of the time, they usually are a cult, but sometimes they're not. But most of the time, they are. So be very, very aware and just remember this. Remember this, because I don't want any of my followers to be looped into a cult. No cults, guys! Cults bad. Remember that. The ruse word of advice of the day, or sentence of advice for today: cults are bad. Remember that. But back to Amy Carlson's legacy. Well, Amy Carlson left behind a complicated and deeply controversial legacy. To devoted followers, she was Mother God, a misunderstood spiritual being who sacrificed herself for humanity. You know, the negativity sponge. But to former members, she was often remembered as a charismatic leader whose increasingly extreme claims and controlling environment caused profound harm. To her family, she was a daughter, a mother, and a person whose life took a tragic path. To investigators, she was the center of one of the most unusual cases they had ever encountered. And to the public, Love Has Won became another reminder of how powerful belief can be, for better and for worse. The story of Love Has Won just about one woman who claimed to be a god. It's about the human desire to belong, to be understood, to find purpose in a confusing world. Those desires are universal. You know, a lot of people want that. Like, most majority of people want that. But, because, you know, it's part of what makes us human. But they can also make people vulnerable to manipulation when someone promises certainty, unconditional acceptance, or secret knowledge that no one else possesses. Amy Carlson's followers believed they were helping save the world. Instead, many found themselves trapped in a reality where questioning was discouraged, outside relationships faded, and obvious warning signs were explained away as proof of divine purpose. Today, the story of Love Has Won serves as cautionary reminder that extraordinary claims deserve careful scrutiny, and that healthy communities welcome questions rather than punish them. Because cults are bad! Remember that! Ruse sentence of the week! Cults are bad. Bad cults. Cults bad. But, my people, thank you for watching. And, like I said in the beginning of this video, I will probably post another poll just for my other cult cases that I might cover and true crime cases. And if anything, remember, my comment sections are always open, so you can leave any true crime case or any cult case that you want me to cover in the comments down below, and I do read every single one. Every single one, because I love my people. My people are my people. Okay? And now, please like and subscribe so I can continue making more content for y'all. And with that, I must say, thank you for requesting Love Has Won. It has been very interesting to research. Very, very interesting, very disturbing, but very interesting. So thank you again. And I will be posting another poll, so y'all better help out and choose the next true crime or cult case. Thank you again. Please like, subscribe, and turn on them notifications for more either art content or true crime content. You know, maybe pick a few. You never know. But thank you again. And have a nice one. I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you all and have a nice, mischievous night.